the one thing that we do got to get into is our segment,
The shiny.
Known as Shiny Objects. Mm-hmm. And so for the listeners, what this segment is, if you haven't heard about this, it's just, we're going to just basically talk about what our current obsession is. It can be archery related, hunting related. It can be anything you want. It doesn't have to be an object. We talked about that before too. So welcome to the Range Podcast. I'm Ricky Bruley, and with me is Jake Hollywood Iverson. Join us at the archery range, where we'll tell stories from the hunt, discuss technical bow shooting tactics and gear, and pick the brains of some of the most successful people to ever shoot a bow. Whether you're about to shoot that X for the win or send an arrow at a trophy buck, this podcast is for you. The Range Podcast is brought to you by Vapor Trail Archery, makers of the best bowstrings money can buy, originators of limb-driven arrow rest technology, and innovators of Stokerized stabilizer systems. But yeah, we'll start with you, man. What is your current shiny object?
I would say if I had to, the first place I go to with that is experiencing new places.
There you go.
So I get stuck in, and I've had it explained to me in a way that I could understand, is like I put my schedule together as far as like hunting and going to new places. And once I put a new place or a new hunt in it, I have a hard time letting it go. Yeah. And what I mean by that is, like, I've worked hard to find properties. I've worked to figure out properties, and then to be successful in killing deer and to not go on that hunt next year, or for maybe 2 years, right, and replace it with a new place, and replace that place with a new place. And just, so I would say that would be my shiny object, is experiencing these new places. I just spent two months in the mountains in Idaho, and it's just like, Hell's Canyon I basically lived in. Like it's like, and everywhere I go and I get a new tag, or I go to a new place and I scout this, or I go fishing here, it doesn't matter if it sucks. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's new.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I think, like, culturally you get more experienced, and you just become better, and all the growth. So that, like, in a nutshell, I would say pushing myself into experiencing new places.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. I like
Another hard one to beat.
See, that's what I love about this shiny objects, man. You know what I mean? Just because it brings out so many things that you wouldn't just naturally talk about, right? It might not come out naturally, but you're like, I'm gonna put some thought into this for a second.
Yes, and I think that's the awesome thing, is like when you get a question where you yourself, somebody fires a question at you, and you go, what is that for me? What is that? And that collectively, is a good exercise for yourself, and you start, kind of rummaging through stuff, and then it all the stuff that we talk about is connected, and that's what I love about it, right? Like, and then it goes back into expectations and this and that and the suck and the peaks and valleys, and you just kind of process it all. And it's, I don't know, man, like the outdoor stuff, it's like such a crazy unwritten brotherhood thing.
Yeah, right.
That is just like, you're just bound by this. I don't know. There's nothing else on the planet like it. There isn't, and I love it. And I'm glad I have family, and I got 2 more brothers now. And
yeah, man.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's a great community to be in.
It is. It's the strongest. It's the best. Like, you can meet somebody you've never met at a grocery store, and they go, "Oh, I see you have like an orange hat on." Yeah, deer hunt. Next thing you know, like, you've known each other for 10 years, and that's ultimately what it is. Like, it's that relating stimulants that, like, you've done that. I know that feeling, and not like, me saying stuff, and you're like, oh, the goosebumps, and it's, I don't know, man. You walk into a store and you see somebody with camo, you're like, that's my dude. You don't say nothing to him or anything,
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I love it. Dude.
And then we all meet in a gas station.
And, and the guy's actually a dick. No. I'm
kidding. In the middle of nowhere, and it's like, I don't want to see you right now. It's like, we can meet in the grocery store out of season, but right now I don't want to talk to you.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's all good until you get the Kuyu/Sitka showdown in the grocery store.
Yep, that happened to me last fall. Mean mugging each other. It's like, this is my public spot, man.
Yeah. You're still wearing your sunglasses, and we're inside.
Yeah. You think your camo is going to help you out? I don't think so. It's so funny that's like a real battle.
Isn't it, like, some of the stuff?
Yeah.
Sitka
like,
is superior. It's okay.
Jason, and when he was on David Brinker's podcast, with the Altitude podcast, they were talking about that, because David used to work for Sitka, and it's just amazing how these battles, like, people literally get in fights and arguments about the better camo or whatever. And he even admitted, he said, when I was working for Sitka, sometimes I'd see somebody wearing something else and I'd kind of be like, but he's like, it's so stupid. Why do we do that?
Yeah.
He's like, it's just like this natural thing because I work for him. Same thing with us. Like, I'm like, oh, you got a ham ski on your bow.
Right.
I see.
Yeah.
But again, it's like, why? Who cares?
I 100% do it just to poke the bear.
Oh,
just to stir some shit. Like,
well, I've debunked all those rules. Me living in the back of my truck with my Walmart solids.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's another good thing to cover on a podcast too. Sometime is talking about you don't need all the fancy expensive shit, and I think that's where a lot of people are like, I could never do that.
Yeah,
I was like, I can't afford this, I can't afford that, I can't afford that. Just go, dude. Get what you can and just go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's customers that come in, they're like, well, for me, I know I don't need the Sitka, but this dude's wearing it, so
marketing works.
And admittedly, he goes, I'm just sitting in my deer stand.
Yeah.
So it just makes me feel like I'm that dude. I'm like, you know what? That's awesome. But to your point, my dad's like, I used to, wear a shirt and blue jeans. Like, what the hell?
That's one of the best bits of advice that I've ever heard from anything anywhere is spend money on hunting experiences, not hunting stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what I do. I'll spend thousands of dollars every season on tags, and it's like I if I could go buy the top of the line stuff and everything, sure, everybody would like that, but it's like, again, you make your sacrifices where you can, and I'm going to spend all my money and channel all my energy on just freaking being there, because without being there, all this other stuff is, you'll have guys that have 50 new bows and all the latest stuff and all the latest stuff, and they'll turn around and bitch about how expensive gas and tags and everything are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you forgot.
I could spend 3 seasons with the shit you got. If I sold it on Craigslist, this how much I've learned that you don't need much.
Yeah, because then you forget to budget for those tags, the gas,
the
food,
all
everything
you
else.
really need is the belly fire.
Right.
The rest of the shit just it works.
It'll play itself out. Play the wind right.
Yeah.
You're good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What about you there, Hollywood? What's your shiny object?
Up, huh? I don't know. There's a lot of things I run into every day, so I just squirrel brain.
We'll be right back.
New for the 2023 archery season is our brand new online arrow customizer. Build your Victory or Easton arrows with multiple vane options, configurations, and custom arrow wraps in a large array of designs and colors. Spine indexing and expedited build options are also available, so you can get back out in the field and flinging in style. Check out the Vapor Trail Arrow Customizer at www.vaportrailarchery.com/arrow customizer.
I don't know. It's hard for me to get I don't know. I keep referencing South Dakota, but I guess that's my fire right now. It was just like last year for North Dakota. It was first time there last year, and I was all fired up all summer. And now my dad and I kind of have an idea for where we're going to be for public, hunting, and took us all of a month to finally find a spot. And we're going to probably go out there in August or late September and scout it out and hunt.
There you go.
Nice.
It's just I think the excitement's there again. Like now, I don't know, for the last month I haven't really been shooting, but now I'm like, okay, we've got this spot. We've seen some inside reviews that I know it's successful, and I'm like, oh, dude, I got to get out and shoot now. So I'm like, I don't know, that I'm kind of burning on the South Dakota thing again, where I'm just like, I'm ready. And and again, maybe a plug for our arrow customizer here, but now that's going to be done and live by the time this airs, oh man, it's a good breath of air, fresh air to take. It will be just focusing on hunting and busy season, man. Busy season's here, so we're starting to get slaughter in the pro shop, so focus shift for sure.
Yeah, it was kind of cool because I didn't know when you told me, I didn't know your dad was going with you, so that's awesome. That's really awesome, man. You got to treasure those moments. I know you said your dad is gone. My dad died of cancer in 2018, and even then, 13 years prior to that, he wasn't really able to hunt anymore. Just got to a point where he just couldn't go, and that was kind of crushing a little bit. But at the same time, it's like I kind of started to figure out too that it wasn't really his thing. The only reason he ever went hunting was for me.
And that itself is so powerful.
Yeah.
And I was just like, but awesome that your dad gets to go with you.
Right.
So yeah, you guys are going to have a blast.
I think for me, it's like that part of growing up and becoming a more mature hunter is just like, we butt heads, quite a bit.
Yep.
But I mean, we've been there for each other for muskie fishing and his biggest deer and whatnot. But it's like, he's always talked about going west. And this last year, I finally like texted him like, one day I'm going to want that back and want that moment. I was like, dude, give me your license number. Give me your, all the information I need. I'll plug it in. We'll apply together. Do it. And I'm forcing him to go now. So it's like, again, we're probably going to have some moments. We all do. Whoever we're hunting with, our buddies, there's going to be a day where everything just sucked complete ass,
but with
and you're going to be mad. But
like the elders that like you grew up with, that were kind of there, like helping you get into it and all that stuff. And like you're a young kid, and then when you kind of become, a man, and you're with those mentors. There's something really cool about being hunting with them, because you can take on some of the responsibility, and it's kind of the full circle, and you can it's a rite of passage. Like I'm a man now, and look what you taught me, and and I know that they're going, they're proud, and like I did a good job, and look what you're doing here, and it's really cool when you can have that dynamic and be able to go through and hunt. Like it's awesome.
Yeah, he was dragging my deer, and now I push him all the way and tell him, let me do it.
And just like you said, like getting his information and, getting the stuff lined up for a hunt, like, that's something that like maybe he wouldn't do by himself or whatever. Now you're kind of taking the reins a little bit, where when you were younger, he had the reins, and it's just this, it's this full circle deal that like when you get to hunt like with a mentor, and a family member, it's, I don't know, man, there's nothing, like it's so cool. But button heads or not, like it's just, I just love it. Like when I hear people say that they're going out with their dad and stuff, like it's just, it's awesome.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
And so remember the lesson here about expectation, right?
Yeah, I know.
And that's, and that's not to say it, not even about killing a deer or anything like that. Because I think about, I hunted with Ben out in North Dakota many, many years, and his dad would come with us. And he just loves being outside. He's all about it. He's not about getting over the next ridge. He's like, you guys are nuts. I'm just going to stay back here. You guys go have fun. And we're like, okay, crazy dude, we're out of here.
Yeah.
And so we bail. And then after the day we come back, and he's like, yeah, I saw like 50 deer. I had like 6 of them walk right out in front of me right here. Yeah. He's like, I just sat here all day and just watched them come by. And he didn't even care to shoot one. So again, if your dad's like, all right, I just want to sit here,
do it.
Let them and go.
Yeah. Right now,
or chill with them, whatever way you want to go.
Yeah,
but
I've kind of already set the stage, like where our plan for the first trip out is going to be, it's scouting, because that's what I did last time. I mean, it's hunting season. But I've never been there. I don't know I have no information of people that have hunted this spot to know, is there even going to be anything there? I have no idea. I could see a prairie dog and that'd be it. So it's like, it's a scouting mission. We find a deer, even better. If we kill a deer, oh my God, that is far beyond the expectation of the first hunt.
And that's what's so awesome about those scouting trips, because a lot of the times, I realize they can't happen because it is so far and like the resources, but again, back to the expectations, is like a scouting trip really helps you curve that expectation, where it's going to be. So when you go back out there, you can like go, okay, we spent 3 days, we saw this for deer. This is the kind of the quality of deer we saw. And, that way, when you go back into it, I think your trip, and that's a part of scouting where I think people don't really realize when you're just scouting, they think like you're just specifically looking for a deer and all this. And it's like, you can go back and like take this lump of data that you've gathered through these days and go, maybe I'm not going to go into this thinking I'm going to shoot this huge deer. I'm going to really enjoy the camping and maybe a little bit more of the fishing, and like, and this part of it's still going to be fun. And I think overall that scouting just helps like the aesthetics of like, what you walk out of that trip with.
Yeah.
And that's a part of scouting that I think a lot of people don't. They just go, shit, we didn't see much. It sucks. Yeah. Well, that just made you going back into it. Like now when you actually do go, you're going to have a better time.
You just gain that knowledge, man.
Because if you rammed into this thing thinking you're going to just blow everywhere behind every tree and you go there and it does kind of suck, like then you're really going to be let down.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe you bring a little bit more fishing stuff, or you spend a little bit more time doing this or exploring that. And like,
yeah, man.
Our plan is just to kind of hang out, have fun.
Yeah.
Bring some binos.
Heck yeah.
And the bows will be there. The bows will be there on opening day. So
hell yeah.
It's such a cliche thing to say, but yes, just have fun.
Yeah.
Some people forget
Yeah.
about that, you know.
Right.
I've been hunting with some people where they just like, I'm like, I can't hunt with that person anymore. It's just
It's too much
too
kill.
negative, too, you know what I
get
mean?
it, dude. Yeah.
Like, it's just, and that's the one thing too. Like, if you guys can
That's funny.
hang out, and even though you said you butt heads, right?
Yeah.
But you can still work through it. That's huge too.
Yeah.
'Cause
Right.
Just like Griffin and Damon, you know, same thing with what they were talking about, how, you know, they just get at each other's throats once in a while, or they get mad at each other or whatever, and that's normal.
Right.
Just how do you deal with it, or, you know, whatever. So that's what I think what makes a really good hunting buddy.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Compromise. Like there's a lot, like, because again, the levels, like for me, like it's hard for me to go with somebody that has like, that's going to get up on the 16th day and go, today's the day. They're just going to look at you and go, no, it's not. You know, like, I'm sick of this shit. Like, this isn't enough, dude. You're nuts. Like, this is it. Like,
I'm sleeping.
This clearly sucks. We've been doing this for 2 weeks. Like, it's not. So, like, it's hard for me. Like, that's why I do a lot of stuff solo, because my balance is a lot different than people. And, you know, by a week, they're like, yeah, you're not living the dream. This sucks. Like, you know. So, like, when you do go on a trip with somebody, there is a level of compromise that needs to happen, you know. And this, just like your buddy that you said, that, you know, you guys go ahead.
Yeah.
I'll stay here. Like, I'm okay with staying back. If you guys are okay with me staying back, yeah, cool. And it just works out.
Yeah.
It's fine. I mean, especially when you see he's like he's ripping layers off, and he's just like, what? This is not what I signed up for.
Yeah, it's like if you did that for the next week, you'd be miserable and you wouldn't have a good trip.
Yeah,
right.
And that's okay. Again, it's all about you know,
it's totally okay.
What are you there for? The fulfillment for him was to be there with his son. And to experience the outcome.
Absolutely.
And also just be out there, be outside.
Right.
You know, all that kind of stuff. He doesn't have to hike 10 miles to get the fulfillment he needs. He's perfectly fine just chilling right there. And he saw more deer than we did. So there's a lesson to be learned there, right? So yeah, but my shining object right now is this guy. This is the I just got the Ultra View button, so I have actual object. But I've always wanted to move to this style of release, just because I know that, technically speaking, the way that I draw a bow and my form and everything isn't really the way that it should be, I guess, but it depends, right? For as long as I've been shooting a bow, right, I've been just like, whatever, I don't care about all that. Right. What I do works for me, right? But now I'm starting to get this, hearing more and more from people, the more you shoot a bow, the more likely you are to develop bad habits and then get target panic. And so I'm trying to avoid that by, you know, rectifying that and just starting to fix my form, starting to shoot better, starting to use different tools. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is the best tool to use. Just always wanted to try it. Always wanted to play with it. And I'm just loving it. It's just sitting there, you know, if I'm sitting at home or something watching a show, I just sit there with the D-loop material and just, you know, and just keep doing it. And then, so you kind of got me on the train with the Joel Turner thing. Yeah. And Shot Josh, IQ. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but Shot IQ.
Yep.
So this gentleman was a SWAT sniper, police officer, all that kind of stuff, taught people how to shoot, but didn't really know how to shoot himself. Sure. And then so had to really push himself to figure out, like, how do you figure out the mental game of knowing that there's this explosion that's coming. You can't do it. You know what I mean? So getting over that and then just going super into detail, which we won't go into here because I won't get any of it right. But that's really kind of been my thing. I've really been focused on that and just trying to figure out, because it's really intriguing when you break it down to like the scientific level. Yeah. It's not about, oh, you just do this and it works. Like, he's really breaking it down to a psychological level. And I love how when he was on Rogan, he kind of related it to how martial artists train. Bow hunting is different, or shooting a bow is different, because you have to, you know, you draw the bow back and you just have to shoot it, right? Like, you don't go through classes and they go, okay, this is how you draw a bow, and then this is how you shoot it. And I mean, most people just pick up a bow and start shooting it, and then they get better and better, and then that's how they do it. So this concept of understanding and making decisions as opposed to just letting things happen. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's really, really interesting. So that's my thing.
For sure. It's awesome.
Plug for Joel Turner. Hopefully we're we want to try to get that guy on here.
Yeah.
Because boy, could we go down a rabbit hole with that.
But, oh God, it'd be bad.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that his style of shooting, I've listened to some of his stuff, and I've been working on it for 2-3 months now, and I don't know. It's like one of those things. It's like almost placebo, maybe. Like he's definitely onto something, but I'm just like, maybe my shooting has gotten that much better because now I'm more actively thinking about every single step that I'm in and what I'm doing. Yeah. Like I think you were saying earlier too, you can apply it to real life. Like actively think about what's going on here, and just thinking through everything before it happens, and
talk yourself through it.
Dude, I've shot, some of my best games. I mean, having the right equipment helps though too. I mean, having an 8-power lens, when the target's that big, in my scope, that helps. But, having some of that shot execution is just huge. And, listening to what he's got is pretty sweet. And I actually got to play at that new release just yesterday, and it's pretty nice.
And what gets me going is, because initially my thought was, how does this really apply to hunting? To me, this is all about trying to hit a penny at 20 yards, right? And do it 60 times in a row. Yeah. But really, the kind of the way, what made him really want to start doing this was all the times that he had missed animals or had a bad shot on an animal. And then when he started having good shots, he started thinking back as to, okay, what was the process that I went through to do that? And he wasn't really what he calls blueprinting it. He was like, well, I didn't really blueprint what I was doing, so I'm not sure what to do next time to make sure that I do it again. Yeah. And then he started just making a more conscious decision of always making sure he's making the perfect shot no matter what. And so, again, it's part of that decision-making process, because I can't tell you how many times I've shot at an animal, missed, and I couldn't even walk you through my process. Yeah. I'm like, did I even look through my peep? I have no idea.
Yeah. But I think too, like on the flip side of what you're saying, there's also that level of like, you can get inside your own head with so much stuff.
Yeah.
It's like shooting traditional is that way. Like, I've read so many books and so on, like, cause it's like, you'll shoot and you're like, I'm not like, this isn't like, it's here, but I want to be here. And then you start adopting like some new form stuff and some new techniques and stuff. And then this and then that. And then it's just like, I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I don't even know how to shoot this thing anymore. And then I just say, piss on it all. I'm just going to look at my target and shoot it. And by God. Yeah. Once you kind of flush that out of your head, I mean, there's a point of like growth and wanting to learn. And I guess that's all internal, is like where that line is for you. But I know that I've crossed that line to where like I've given myself so much information and researched so much. It's like, so like you shoot your longbow, it's like you don't get to like roll back and kind of fall into that pocket and get everything ready and how does this feel, and you can let down and go, okay, no, it's because I know as soon as I feel this touch here, here, and here, it's happening. Yeah. Like it just has to happen. And then like you said, during practice, it's like I'll shoot and it's like, well, shit, I don't even know where did I touch that? Like, was it this? So like, and it becomes like, it's super addicting. Like you just can't get enough of it, but you got to be careful, because I'll tell people like you'll get inside your own head and you're trying to go through these processes that you have a split second to go through, and you kind of just got to shake a lot of that stuff off.
Yeah. Information overload.
And just stick to like with what you're doing and like and then you can, like once you get this kind of down, then you can start working on, your release, and like, cause everything with trad is like so exaggerated. Like it's the tiniest pluck is like, like there's no forgiveness on stuff, the only forgiveness you really have is the length of your bow.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's to go back to what you were saying about that. So one of his things is the biggest mistake that people make is they're aiming. Like they're actively, that's where their focus is, where your focus really should be on the process. Yeah, makes going total through sense. The motion. And then and he had this saying that I thought was really interesting. I'll see if I can remember it. It was something about being able to pull the trigger slow enough to stop it.
Yeah. Having enough control over your trigger
to stop
or
it.
The motion to stop it and go back. Yeah. Because that's a big thing for hinge shooters like myself, like rolling it over. It's like going at a speed fast enough to where you'll get there, but you're not there for so damn long that you're aiming forever, and then you're in your head, and then everything goes down the window. Yeah. But if something's not right, whatever it might be, you can still let down. Yeah. You can still back out of it,
I really want to dive more into it because it's really it's a little bit like overwhelming because you know when he talks about his son Bodie who won Vegas, 15 years old, right? So this is kind of how this whole thing started, and everybody started paying attention. Like, whoa, how's it? You know, what's going on? And he talks about how his focus, just the way that his son's very intentional on every shot, and he was just like, I can tell that he's gonna put it in the X every time. I can just see it. And he's like, then you see some of these other guys, and it just starts getting in their head, and they're just like, they're over there, you know, moving around and twitchy and nervous and all that kind of stuff. And but then you know, Rogan had made a comment about concentration, and he was like, well, no, it's not about concentration though. He's like, it's about having that process, and it's about mechanical things, like you said, like the string touching a certain part of your face, or like how, you know, he's got that new release now that has a clicker, or some bows have a click on it. Those kinds of things are really important. You don't necessarily need that, but he was like, some of the things that you do, like the last thing I heard him talk about was how people kind of talk themselves into like like, here we go, release. That sort of thing, like going through that motion. He was like, all the most successful shooters that I know say something before they shoot. I'm like, that's interesting. Whether you have to physically say it or mentally say it, I don't know. He didn't really get into that, but it's just interesting to me because I'm not really so interested about hitting the penny at 20, but I'm really interested in never missing a deer again. Ever. And not having that, you know, it's the worst feeling when you've worked so hard to get there. And the odds are against you, like we talked about, and then you blow it. And you're like,
that's tough.
What happened? How did this happen? I shot 15,000 arrows in my backyard, and every single one of them hit where I wanted to. And then, you know, again, obviously what happened? You got, you know, the animal was in front of you. It's a different ball game. But being able to have that control and maybe make the decision like, well, maybe I don't need to pull the trigger right now, or knowing when to wait, or just knowing to go through your process so you're not after the fact going, geez, I'm not sure I even had my peep aligned with my sight.
I can tell you what went wrong. That deer took 3 more steps closer.
Well,
down a hill.
That,
and I mean too, like
happened to me.
A lot of that is it just boils down to just being in front of animals.
Yeah.
You know, like in guiding, you can really tell people like, you know, well, this and that, and how they react when this target animal comes in and all this stuff. And it's just a matter of like, you learn a lot of that just through the years of experience of having yourself in that situation.
Definitely.
And there's no substitute for it, unfortunately. You know?
And for us living in Minnesota, it's tough with like mule deer, but it's like, I know that feeling now where it's like, I could totally pick out that person too now. Cause I saw it in myself where it's like, you know, having more experience in front of that deer. And that's the great thing about like letting so many whitetails walk is you learn so much more about them, both like mule deer. Like I had to learn so much in like, you know, 16 days. So it's like,
just spotting them takes a little while, right? Like knowing what you're looking for.
Oh my gosh.
All that kind of stuff. Cause I can't tell you, when I first started, Ben would be like, oh yeah, there's some deer over there. And I'm like, where? He's like, see him yet? Nope. See him yet? Nope. And then he's like, all right. So he sets his binoculars up on his tripod. He's like, all right, come over here and look through mine. And then I'm like, oh yeah, there are deer over there. You know what I mean? And then eventually when you start to see them, then you're like, okay, now I kind of know what I'm looking for.
Right.
You know, but then the Dakotas are always great, especially when you get a little bit of snow, and every little spot of snow looks like a mule deer tail.
Yep. That happened to me, man.
What I struggle with a lot in them scenarios is like, you can pull up to some ground and like walk out on a high point and go, no deer. But it's full of deer. It's just tiny little micro deals, and like, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm just gonna sit here and I'm gonna eat my sandwich and a little bag of chips and just hang out for a while. I don't really have nothing else to do. And then all of a sudden it's like, what the hell? The deer stands up out of its bed and it goes to shift, you know, and get out of the sun. And it's like, and then you're like, well, okay, you know, and then there's spots where it's like you'll sit there all evening when the deer really get up and start moving, and it's like boom, 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 boom. And it's like, you really got to learn to just chill out. Like I physically, like out loud, tell myself that a lot, like slow down, dude. Like,
I remember Rick telling me that when I was heading out there.
Slow.
Just sit for a bit.
Because you want to look at it and go, there's nothing here because we're so programmed to this. There's stuff everywhere. They polar opposite. And you go out there and it's like, what the? I remember the very first time I walked through these like little drainages and stuff, whatever, and it was Western South Dakota. And it's like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
There's nothing here. This is so dumb.
Mm-hmm.
I started walking. I started blowing mule deer out of that bitter brush just like crazy. I'm just like, holy jeez, there's a buck. What the heck?
Yeah.
And it was like it's a learning curve, and you got to kind of give yourself grace too, because say you're there for 2 weeks. Well, that's 2 weeks. Like, think of what you know here. You spent your whole life learning it.
Right.
So you got to give yourself a little grace and not be hard on yourself, and realize it is a learning process.
Right.
Definitely. And one of the things we had to learn too, and we'll learn the hard way a few times, is kind of, I guess, knowing when you're like, okay, there probably isn't a lot of deer in here. I need to move on.
Yeah.
Because we've done that too, where it's just like, no, just sit it out, and you'll sit a spot for like 3 days.
Yeah.
And then we're like, dude. And then we go to this other spot, and it's like, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
It's like, this is where we need to be.
And that's mule deer. Like, that's something I've really learned with mule deer is like, they're you're in them or you're not.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're in them or you're not.
Yep.
It's one or the other. And I mean, I'm not saying you can't go to spots and like see a handful of deer and but when you're in deer, it's like, oh dude, there's a couple over there. Oh, there's one. See that clip? Like you're in them. Like,
yeah,
you're in
there's
them.
a pile
when
of them there.
When you find the ground that the deer, whatever they're correlating to, whether it's a certain type of graze or there's more water, that year than there is anywhere else. Like, but when you're in them and you find them, you're in them.
Right. And it's thick.
Yeah, and it's like that's just like the thing too, is like going slow and like giving yourself grace. It's like just keep hitting your spots and stay with it, stay persistent. And it's like, oh, there's no deer here. There's no deer here. What the hell are we gonna do? And then all of a sudden you're in them.
Yeah.
And then now all of a sudden the shittiest trip just turned into the best one.
For sure. Vapor Trail is now offering an exclusive discount to the Range Podcast listeners. Enter promo code TRP15, that's TRP15, at checkout for 15% off VTX bowstrings and Vapor Trail and Stokerized branded t-shirts, hats, and other gear.